tone. Okay. So, I'm gonna lean down here and talk into the microphone. What's going on, guys? Um, so what I'm doing tonight is I'm just gonna run through a couple of quick, real easy ways to make the Helix kind of work for you, because a lot of people are concerned about using the HX Stomp or the Helix because it's a lot of fiddling and it's a lot of knob twisting and stuff, which for me is great because I get to play around with tones all night. But some people just want to plug and play. Stuff like the Iridium is great for that, and I would recommend instead maybe of looking into the Helix, maybe look into the Iridium if you want a plug and play kind of thing. But you just won't have any of the options that the Helix can give you. The Kemper is also awesome, but the Kemper is a completely different animal, where you're profiling amps that you own or buying amps from people that have profiled them, and it's cool. It's really cool, and I think you can get a better let me sit down for this. You can get a better out of the box amp tone out of that. I think it's easier to get a good out of box tone, but if you have an existing pedal board and you're happy with the way that your amp sounds, and you profile that amp or get a profile of that amp, and then you can take the amp out on the road with you without having to drag the whole amp. And that's the beauty of the Kemper, right? So if you're a pedal board user, a Kemper would probably work better for you, unless you just want something like the Stomp for a backup rig. But in the studio, for me, when it comes to sheer amount of tones that I can make, I can have 3 or 4 different amplifiers all at the same time, just based on what I'm doing with the Stomp. So if I wanted a couple of different amps, I can have that without having to mess with different models, and the Kemper models are kind of pricey. You can buy a lot of impulse responses that really soup up your tone, but you can get a really usable good tone out of just the stock cabs that come with the Helix too. So I'm gonna chat a little bit about that and just make a tone. I am playing a Strat clone, just your standard single coil machine here, and I think what I'm gonna do is just I'm trying to think of what would be a good all around kind of tone. I think I'm gonna go with a Mesa. I think I'll make no, you know what? I think I'll stick with something basic tonight. I'll do a sort of tweedy kind of amp. Stick with mid gain, low to mid gain, and see what I can make out of that just by grabbing a couple of things out of the Helix. So let's get started real quick here. I'm gonna jump into HX Edit, which you can see is over here on this side of the screen. Can you see you see what I'm doing? Can't see the cursor, but you can see what I'm doing, so that's good. Okay, so let me take a look at what we got. So first and foremost, I want to I'm just gonna grab an amp and a dual cab. And this is not what I'm actually going to use. I'm going to change all of, I'm going to change all of this here in a second. I just wanted to have it here so that I can jump into it without having to do too much. So let's take a look. First of all, we're going to start with the amp. Now, so if you want like a tweedy sort of vintage kind of tone for like a if you're trying to get like a blues junior or a deluxe or I don't know, like they've got like a Mesa Boogie tweed, and they've got like a bunch of other like there's a bunch of different like a blues breaker, and there's a bunch of like tweedy kind of amps that are good for like medium gain. You don't want to go super heavy on them, but you can get pretty crunchy if you really want to. And that's the cool thing about this whole thing, is that like you can kind of do whatever you want. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 kind of tweedy sort of amps. You got a 2 channels of the tweed blues, which let me pull up my. So one of the best ways to know what you're doing when it comes to the Helix, and know what sounds you want, is to kind of know what kind of amp you want to use. And there's an entire list of the amps and what the amp is modeling on the website called Helix Help, and I'm gonna open that up here on my tablet so that I can tell you the right things, and not like lie to you about what anything is. So let's take a look here. So we've got on the sort of like tweedy side of things, we have the Tweed Blues, which is the normal and bright channels of a Fender Bassman, which is a classic tweed guitar amp. We also have a US small tweed, which is a clone of a Fender Champ, which is a really tiny 112 like cabinet thing that they put out for a little while. And then we've also got a couple of new ones. The Fullerton, which is a 1958 Fender 5C3 Deluxe Tweed. So that'll be kind of closer to your standard like Tweed Deluxe. And then a Grammatico, which is the 2016 Grammatico LaGrange. So that one is a little bit more of a modern tweed amp. So you'll still get some of the same like tones, but it's a little bit cleaner than like a really old tube amp would be. So let's take a look here. Let's see. I'm going to let's start with the small tweed. So like in a lot of recording studios, you can get, actually, you know what? Maybe just a standard tweed blues. No, you know what? I'm going to start with the small tweed. In a lot of like home and smaller recording studios, a lot of times you end up with like smaller, it's a 1x8, sorry. You end up with like smaller amps that put out really big sounds. And so like one of the keys to the Helix is treating it like you're setting up an amp and cab, and then like miking it up, and taking other things into account, like the early reflections off of the back of the microphone and how far away the microphone is to the amplifier and all of that other stuff. So like if you get impulse responses, they decide all of that for you. But the great thing about the Helix is that you can kind of do all of that yourself if you know sort of basic amp setup and recording techniques. So I'm actually going to do a dual cab. So we've got two 1x8 small tweed cabinets here. And really, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them exactly the same. And I'm going to put two different mics on them. And it's going to sort of emulate what it would sound like if I had two mics correctly in phase on the same monitor speaker. So let's see. Your classic mic combo is a SM57 and a ribbon mic, specifically Royer 121. But you could there's a few. So there's 3 different ribbon mics here. You can get a 121, which let's go back here and make sure that I'm telling you the right thing. Models, cabs, mics. Here we go. Yep. So the 57 is obviously an SM57, and the 121 is obviously a Royer 121. But there are a couple different ribbon mics that you can use. There is a Beyerdynamics M160, which is the 160 ribbon, and there is also the 4038 ribbon, which is a Coles 4038, classic ribbon microphone. It's used on like drums a lot, like drum overheads. We've also got a good number of dynamic microphones if you're not a huge fan of the 57 sound. There's a couple of them that I like because I own like a cheaper version of them. So like the 57, obviously I've got, every sound engineer and musician probably has 57s lying around. I use the Beta 57, so I EQ my 57 a little bit differently, because I like to kind of like emulate the gear that I have, and then like pair that with stuff that I could never afford, like the Coles 4038. Oh my god, I would love that. I would love to have one of those. The Royer 110 is like a really good stage ribbon mic, and I'd love to own one of those. And it's about like $500, so it's not too bad. Maybe soon I'll get one of those, but who knows? Probably not. In the meantime, there's a couple of ribbon mics that are active that are like $100 or $200 that you can get from Guitar Center or wherever. One is the Sterling, and let's see. Sorry, I'm digging in my my stuff here. I'm digging in my collection of things here for real microphones, even though I'm supposed to be talking about modeled microphones. Here we are. Let's see. So, we've got, we get to do our first unboxing. This is not new, but I love it. I use it on drums a lot. It is an active ribbon mic, Sterling. I want to say it was on sale when I bought it. I want to say it was like $150 at Guitar Center. Really, really cheap ribbon mic. Does what ribbon mics do. It's figure of 8 pattern, really dark sounding. Smooths out hi-hats really good. I like that a lot. For my drum overheads, I need a stereo pair because right now I just use one, kind of like behind the drummer, like pointed over their head, aimed at the snare, to kind of pick up some of that snare sound as well. Picks up toms really nicely, smooths out your hi-hats and all that. It's good. It's really good. It's really good for the money. I would love, though, to have a 4038 or a 121 or a 160. Let's see. I'm going to dance between these and kind of just listen to them and hear how they sound. So, US small tweed. The stock way that the amp comes up is with the master volume cranked, and I think that's generally a good way to go about making these tiny amps sound huge. Like a lot of the time, when you're recording in a small studio, or like a bedroom studio, something like that, you can't turn everything up all the way. But when you're in a real studio setting, like instead of using like giant stacks, sometimes recording engineers will use like a smaller amp turned all the way to 10, and that gives you a really nice sound. So let's hear how, just like this is stock, I just turned the channel volume all the way up. Let's hear how the stock amp and my couple little cab changes sound. Let's listen to that here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So we've got 58 and what's this, a 121? Let's, first of all, let's put them in phase with each other. There we go. Let me tune back down to standard real quick. I was working on a record earlier, and so I was drop tuned, thinking that maybe I was gonna do something heavier tonight, but it is what it is. It's fine. The only thing I don't like about this guitar is that when I drop tune, the whole thing goes out of tune. And I think I just need to get it set up, but, with we've got alpha open, but there's, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so that is hecka dry. So we're gonna actually throw a little bit of reverb on the inside here, but I'm gonna show you a trick real quick as well. We're gonna stick with the spring because I love the 63 spring in here. That's like this. It's supposed to be a model of the spring reverb inside a Fender Deluxe, I think. Let me check and make sure. Effects. It's probably gonna tell me something stupid, like line 6 original. Ah, yeah, it does. It's a like Princeton Reverb, Deluxe Reverb, like it's the spring reverb inside of a Fender amp, basically. And it sounds awesome. I love spring reverb. It's like one of my favorite things outside of like sweeping delays and such. I really do, and I really do enjoy it. And so let's take a listen here to what that sounds like. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, that's a standard for me. I actually want less of this mix. Oh, cool trick here. You also get an input gate on your actual guitar channel here, so you don't have to use the gate effect, which for the Helix it doesn't matter as much, but for the HX Stomp, where you've only got 6 blocks, every block matters, and you've got a limited amount of DSP as well. So like even though you get 6 blocks technically, like you might not be able to fill up all 6 depending on how much of other things you use. And if you use dual cabs, you'll run into problems of having less DSP to work with other things. So the reverb and the cabs usually take up the most DSP for me, and then I do a lot of my editing in post, so compression and stuff before I go into the channel. Like I've got my my compression and gain up a little bit so that the stomp is like being fed a little bit heavier than it normally would be. Let's see. Because, see, that's with it off. And I just turned it back on. Now you can kind of... All right, so let me turn on my gate. There we go. There's not nearly enough reverb for that. Hold on. Now we gotta like... What's that? What is that riff? Yeah, like super springy. Another really good like spring reverb that they give you is the double tank, which has that like proper drip. It's also got like a little bit of cool modulation. Anyway, that's a lot of fun. Let's see. Well, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back to normal. Let's go back to the spring. Alright, so let's take a little look-see at our settings. I think I might go with a 4038. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, alright. Now, let's see. We're gonna take the low cut to about 10K. So, it gives us a high cut and a low cut that we can mess around with. I usually set the high cut at 10K and the low cut. I usually set it a little higher than this. It's usually at like 90 for me, just because like I always use the ribbon mic and they're so dark. But I don't know. I use a Strat, so like sometimes it can sound thin if you do too much of a low cut. Why couldn't I have done that before? That sounded so much better. All right. Let's see. Let's try moving it a little bit. 1.5, which is better. back a little further. So the good thing about it is you can trick it. You can do it two ways. You can make it like seem like it's one cab by using the mics at the same distance from each other, or from the speaker, from the center of the speaker, or you can treat it like two cabs that you're miking, and you don't really have to worry as much about phase because it's two different microphones, two different cabinets. And you can just like, check it, like make sure that you're not like missing frequencies. But generally, you don't have to worry about it this much. Now, if you were using two separate cabs, that would be a little bit different. Alright, so let's dive into the settings. How long have we been going? Alright. Let's dive into the settings real quick. I'm going to turn this drive like way down. There we go. And the reason I'm doing that is because I am using pedals in front of the amp, so it's going to give me a little bit more like leeway. I have 1, 2, 3 blocks left, so we gotta be careful about what we're doing or we'll run out of DSP. I think a red squeeze, which is a Dynacomp. Yeah, it's a MXR Dynacomp compressor. Cool. Nice and squashed. I think, first of all, let's make sure that our levels are the same. I'm going to assign it to a foot switch so I can control it. It's going to be a little you want your compressor at unity gain. So that basically means that you want it to not add a whole lot of extra level to what you're doing. Okay, now that I'm in battle mode, I can stand up a little bit here. Ugh. Bear with me for a second. Okay. Here we go. Cool. Sorry about that. So the bad thing about this particular compressor is that it's good and bad. It has its own character, but it's really squishing right now. So let's roll it back a little bit. Gives you kind of like a So basically your compressor is just like squashing the signal a little bit. Make my picking a little more even. But now I'm lost all my dynamics. So the good thing about the Helix compressor is that you don't get on the real deal, is that you can roll this back. I like to keep mine at about 70%. That way I still get the dynamics. Gives you that like a little spank. Which is great for a Strat. Right? So we've got a clean, spanky kind of like well, whatever I was trying to do. What is the riff? There it is. So it's nice and like nice and compressed without like being super compressed. And I think I might actually move it back a little bit more. And I do the way that I do because I'm gonna compress it more in post. So I don't want it to be too squished. Plus, it's going into a little bit of compression on the board, so. So, now, let's look at a little bit of overdrive. I think the standard to start with is the clon. So let's do the Minotaur. It's a little honky. But that comes from the compressor that I used. So if I turn that off. See how it opens up a little bit? But it's still kind of honky. I'm going to change compressors here. So the Kinky Comp is a SPL compressor. I'm sorry, an SP compressor. They're the ones who make the EP booster from Exotic. And it works kind of almost like a booster. A little bit less, a little bit more transparent, which eliminates some of that honk. What? That's awesome. Oh, sweet. I'm gonna have to check that out. Okay, let's see. Probably roll back some of the sensitivity. Sounds good. I like it, but I think I'm gonna change. Let's change the tone before we change overdrives. I think I want to change overdrives, but it's got this like mid honk thing that I don't like. And using an EQ block, like I could EQ it out, right? Like if I use a 10-band EQ, right? Or really, let's say I want a graphic EQ. I could EQ out that 750 hertz like mid honk, which is what that is. See what I'm saying? Like, I could EQ that out, or I could bring it in. But now it sounds like a telephone booth. You see what I'm saying? So if you EQ some of that out, standalone, it doesn't sound extremely inspiring. But I promise, if you cut out some of that 750, it will sit better in a mix when you've already got like a whole lot of mid information going on. So if you got 2 or 3 guitar parts, cut out some of the 750 hertz in your rhythm one especially, but in most of them, cut a little bit of it out in all of them, and it'll like free up some of your mid information. But that would take up my last EQ block, so I'm not doing that. Or my last block, so I'm not doing that. And because I want a delay of some type. Hold on, what's going on? Are we good still? We're still good? Okay, cool. So, I think I'm going to change this overdrive here. Let's go to the heir apparent. Yeah, that's better. Cool. I like that much better, and I didn't even have to do anything. So the heir apparent is a clone of an analog man, Prince of Tone. It also gives you a King of Tone, which is the Tone Sovereign. But the Prince of Tone is great because it's just one channel of the King of Tone. And making both of those overdrives work together can be a little bit tricky if you don't know what you're doing. So I would just say, like, if you're wanting like a really easy time, you know, just stack 2 different overdrives. Or you could use the Tone Sovereign and just like put one on overdrive and one on boost, or one on distortion, something like that. So there's 3 channels here. There's an overdrive channel, a boost channel, make this here a little louder, and a distortion channel. So actually, you know what? I might use the Tone Sovereign, because then I can put one on boost and one on overdrive, and that'll give me something like this. Give it a little bit of a presence boost here. Yep. And that's how you get like a edge of breakup. Right, so that sounds pretty good, I think. I think what I need to do, first of all, let us cut some of the mix back here. On our delay. So it's not eating up our space. We're also going to add a little bit of headroom. Maybe this one. Let's actually turn gain 2 down a little bit. try something different. My favorite overdrive that I use probably more than anything else is the Compulsive Drive, which is the OCD. It's one of my favorite overdrives. I use it on the guitars that I tech for the band that I was in. Let's see. Generally, I like to set it with the gain relatively low and the level relatively high, just so that it gives me like a... Yeah, gives me like a... Speaking of number 4 here. Back some of that low end. See, I mean, but like by changing the tone up, we're switching pickups. Too heavy though. Let's try a tube screamer. Presence boost here. Turn that into like a fuzz. Probably too much mid-range there. But let's turn up some of the treble, I think, maybe. Give it a presence boost and turn up the treble. But you know what? It might be that the microphone is a little bit too fat. So let's turn the high cut up a little bit. Yeah, actually, I like that a lot. Ordinarily, I'd make a lot of these choices with EQ in the final mixing process, but it always helps to start out with a tone that you like. It's a little dark for me, so I'm actually going to change ribbons and see what happens. Instantly, I like that better. The 4038 is really dark. Let's see. Maybe bring it closer. Take it away. Let's change it up a little bit. Put the compressor at the end. Cut the sensitivity way down. Not that far. Change compressors, actually. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna eventually learn that. Yeah. For a like a kind of tweety twangy tube screamer on the neck pickup of a Strat. That's like a good clean it's like a good clean John Mayer-y kind of tone. And it still like has a little bit of bite to it. Definitely not my first choice for an overdriven tone. But I love the clean tone. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Don't want to knock my stuff over here. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. I think I'm gonna call it quits for the night. You guys have a good one. I'm gonna stream again tomorrow, I think, and do do some different tones and try something new. Maybe something a little bit heavier, maybe some medium gain stuff. So if you guys like this, let me know. And leave a like and maybe subscribe to the channel down in the doobly doo. If you're on Facebook, what's happening? If you wouldn't mind giving our channel a like, that'd be awesome. The Good Not Safe record comes out on the 30th of May. It's called Bayview. So yeah, you can hear some of the guitar work that I do for that. Yeah, so I will talk to you guys later. Stay safe, wear a mask. We've got some stuff coming up, hopefully soon. I'm gonna try to get like maybe one or two other people streaming for you guys as well. Um, Working on doing live streams with smaller groups when we open back up a little bit more, when it's safe to come outside, and then maybe larger groups when we're really in the clear. But for right now, we're gonna keep it small and intimate. Maybe just like one other musician doing their thing for you. I'm hoping to get that set up here sometime soon. So yeah, stay tuned.